We're doing this for the kids. The unions are the people who brought us a weekend and an 8-hour workday. If we don't do this now, our children will not have a weekend, an 8-hour workday, or collective bargaining rights. This is for the kids.
Well, that's one of the intelligent teachers in Wisconsin saying she's doing it for the children, and that if they lose this, they're not going to have weekends. The children won't have weekends either. There'll be child labor. In fact, if they have to give up any of their money and pay for their health care and their insurance for their pensions and insurance for health care, why, they won't have weekends. The children won't have weekends. The poor children won't know what to do with themselves. So do you know what's going on in Wisconsin, Milwaukee? I mean, it's amazing to me that the country is finally catching on to who Obama is, and how the unions, of course, and the people are against each other in this country right now. Once again, we're facing battles this country fought many, many years ago. The left-wing radicals in Wisconsin from the unions have mobbed the Capitol with rent-a-mobs. They've taken the children out of school and used them as fodder for their lies, because the teachers and the others, the state workers who are affected, don't want to pay what everybody else pays for their health insurance and towards their own pensions. I pay for my own pension. I pay for my own health care. Why shouldn't they? And now they're comparing the governor of Wisconsin, who simply wants to prevent his state from becoming like the United States of America, meaning bankrupt. They're comparing him to Adolf Hitler, with a little help from Jesse Jackson, of course. Now, I could ask you which side you're on, because I'd like to discuss this. Are you on the side of the teachers? Do you think that the teachers in Wisconsin and elsewhere should not pay any percentage of their income for their health insurance and for their pensions? You know, the average city teacher compensation tops $100,000. Did you know that? Did you hear that? How do you feel about the Democrats leaving the state and hiding in another state? How do you feel about a state where the Democrats, instead of coming to the plate and doing what they were elected to do, which is vote and lose, they disappear and leave the state? As far as I'm concerned, they should be thrown out of office. I believe they're in contempt of the state laws, and they should be fired, every one of them, and they should be forced to go into a special election. There should be no Democrats left in that state if they continue to act this way. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about Obama backing the unions? How do you feel about learning today that the teachers in that area earn over $100,000? The average city teacher makes more than $100,000 a year. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the issue in general? How come the protests are now spreading to Ohio and Michigan? How come the unions are on the side of such absurdity? How come Jesse Jackson is coming in, hi Jackson, rallying the protesters and using the children, saying it's a real Martin Luther King moment? It's an amazing story. The governor is simply trying to balance the budget. He's now ordered state troopers to bring the Democrat cowards to the Capitol. I hope they arrest them all, frankly. And the governor is saying we're not going to be bullied or intimidated. He even told President Obama to mind his own business and to do for the nation what he's trying to do for the state. Now, I want to play some of the sound for you because it's very interesting. I want you to listen to, again, clip one. Play clip one.
We're doing this for the kids. The unions are the people who brought us a weekend and an 8-hour workday. If we don't do this now, our children will not have a weekend, an 8-hour workday, or collective bargaining rights. This is for the kids.
This is for the kids. If she was my children's teacher, I'd seek to have her put into prison. This hysterical lunatic. Now, here's clip 4.
What is this sign supposed to mean?
One of Hitler's first acts was to take over labor unions, so that people could not organize.
So you're saying Scott Walker, Governor
That's
Walker,
what he's doing, is taking over labor
Hitler?
unions.
Okay, but I mean the little mustache, the Hitler mustache
Like
on
Hitler.
him.
So they're comparing Governor Walker with Hitler now. This is a teacher. Now you understand why your children are number 37th in the world in science and math. This is what's teaching your children. They're comparing a governor who's trying to balance the books with Adolf Hitler. Next, go to 5.
This is no longer a one-sided class war. We need to tax the rich. They hoard all of our money. We give all our money, all our paychecks to the rich, to the corporations who exploit us in our work anyway. And they don't even want to pay their fair share of taxes. That's why we can't afford anything.
So they want to tax the rich because they hoard all of our money and they don't even want to pay their fair share of taxes. It's actually the rich who pay the majority of taxes in the United States of America. It's actually the rich who pay the schmuck salary. It's actually the rich who pay the taxes for the state to give this moron a living. But it gets even worse. Listen to clip 6.
Our budget deficit is because we don't tax the rich. Meanwhile, productivity is
All right, turn it off. You get an idea. You know, we used to have a saying, and I'm a former teacher. Those who can do and those who can't teach. And it's a sad thing to say, but in most cases it's true. And I also learned when I was a young teacher from an older teacher who was very dedicated. He said, Michael, let me tell you something. You're going to learn in this field, in this profession, that there are two types of people. Either you're dedicated or you're demented. And he said, that's exactly the breakdown in the world of teachers. And I was a young teacher. I laughed at it. I didn't quite get it. He was right. Because many of them were simply doing it and doing the same thing day in and day out. They were horrible teachers. They were not dedicated to the children. They were dedicated only to their pension, and they were demented. The children, of course, learned nothing from them. So here they are using the children in the schools. Even though the average compensation tops $100,000 a year, it's not enough for them. They want to tax, and they don't want to work. What do you think about this? How do you feel about this? Let's go to Wisconsin. Dave, welcome to the Savage Nation. You're in Wisconsin. What's your opinion?
I think they're using the children as pawns. They talk about getting an 8-hour workday. Well, they're cramming 9 months of work into a 12-month year. They have all kinds of benefits. They have a late start here in Wisconsin. You know, the teachers are allowed to prepare their...
Don't you think that there's something illegal about using children in a union-organized protest?
Well, they're taking a sick day. I mean, they're pretending it's not a protest.
No, but wait a minute. How can they make children go to a protest march to give it a nice, kind face? Isn't that somehow violating child abuse laws?
Yeah, they're kind of coercing them to go. They're, since the school is not open anyways, the kids are going because, well, it's their teachers and they like their teachers, and teachers are feeding them, the propaganda.
But do the children actually know what they're doing? They don't know what they're doing.
No, a lot of them have no clue.
Well, Dave, you're in Wisconsin. Let's put this in a national context. You recently had an election because your budget was out of control. The state had become too much like a socialist nation. And so you put a Republican majority in power. Is that what happened?
Yep, he was elected by I forget the exact majority, but it was a pretty good majority. He didn't have any surprises. He told people what he was going to do if he got in.
So in other words, the people said enough is enough with this deficit spending. We want fiscal conservatism. We're through with the welfare state. We're putting Republicans in power. And now the unions and the thugs called teachers who are hiding are saying, we don't care what the people say. We're going to use every tactic known to mankind to violate the will of the people. Isn't that really what it boils down to?
Yep, the unions don't want to lose their power. They're calling up businesses and threatening to boycott, seeing which way their opinion goes with the business.
Is that why Hy Jackson was called in with the megaphones? They bust him in too?
Yep, you got the same old...
so he's going to be outside again, still with the megaphones threatening boycotts? You know what I say? Boycott, baby, boycott. Go ahead. Those days are over. Suddenly it's not 1960. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. There's a line of people, if they fire these people like the air traffic...
If I were the governor, I would stand up to the teachers and fire them and replace them with all the people who've been waiting for a teaching job. I would do the same with the park rangers. They all have it pretty good. They're on a gravy train. Say, okay, you are fired, and then just open the schools up and bring in all the people who've been on a waiting list. Bring in the temps who are not covered by the union. Give them full-time jobs and cut the other ones out completely. What would happen if that was done?
Well, if they had it on merit, if the unions were no longer in power, they'd have the merit of the teachers, and the bad ones would be out, and the good ones would teach.
Yeah, I think they're overplaying their hand. The bottom line here, Dave, is that the will of the people of Wisconsin is not being upheld by the unions and the teachers, as far as I can tell. And I'm a former teacher.
Yeah, I mean, we had a vote, and the popular elected governor came in, and he's doing what he said he was going to do. And outside of Madison, outside the bubble of the liberal bubble, people, they don't.
So Madison is the Berkeley of Wisconsin, correct? Filled with potheads and cranks and leftists of all kind.
State employees, university employees.
Right, state university employees, crackpots, cranks, potheads, miscreants of every breed live in Madison. I'll be right back on the Savage Nation.
Savage.
We're doing this for the kids. The unions are the people who brought us a weekend and an 8-hour workday.
We heard the hysteric before. That's teaching our children. Now, not to be outdone by the hysterical teacher from Madison is Nancy Pelosi, who just came out saying that she stands in solidarity with the Wisconsin workers fighting for their rights, especially for all the students and young people leading the charge. Nancy Pelosi, the last I checked, is the wealthiest woman in Congress, but she's standing in solidarity with the Wisconsin workers fighting for their rights, especially for all the students and young people leading the charge. Suddenly it's Cairo. It's Cairo. I suppose soon we're going to hear that it's the greedy dairy farmers in Wisconsin hoarding the cheese. Maybe one of the hysterics can seem, get the cheese, break into the silos, get the milk from the cows. And I wouldn't be surprised if by next week the unions don't say that they're going to organize the cows and sign them on for cow rights to make sure that they're not milked on weekends and during the summer. Chicago, Pat, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Oh, my gosh, Michael, I was up in Wisconsin today doing some work up there, talking to the homeowner. They love this governor up there. And you know what? This guy needs to
Well, because they're taxed to death for these greedy state workers. The average person in that state has had enough with high taxes, regulations, so they threw out the Democrat socialist bums, and you could see what Stalinists they are. When they can't outright control it, they leave the state. This is something I would have expected from Uzbekistan, not from Wisconsin. It's a tactic you'd expect out of Siberia.
So the Wisconsin people, I want this guy to run for governor down here in Illinois. This is the most corrupt, worst state you could possibly live in, and we need to get more of these people.
Well, you're saying Illinois is corrupt? Why? Because it gave us Barack Obama, Blagojevich, Rahm Emanuel. Why would you say it's corrupt? These are some of the finest Americans in the history of this fair republic.
I know, and it's awesome that they all live in Illinois.
Yep. It's amazing what great people come out of Illinois. Okay, so, I'm not going to do this for hours today, but, it's a very big story because it's going to spread. Now, the governor himself has not been heard from yet. I want you to listen to clip 9.
I continue to work, and I'm calling on the members of the state Senate to show up and do the job that they're paid to do as well. They don't have to agree with everything we proposed, but they should, on behalf of the people who pay their salaries, show up to work.
All right, keep playing 11.
When it comes to the health care premium contribution, we're asking for just over 12.5%, which is half the national average. Half the national average. The workers I was at the other day at manufacturing companies all across the state point out that they'd love to have a deal like what we're proposing. We have a $3.6 billion deficit that we've inherited. Like nearly every other state across the country, we're broke in Wisconsin. We don't have more money to give. We don't have anything to negotiate with. It's either a matter of making reductions and making modest requests of our government employees or looking at massive layoffs at a time when we don't need anybody else laid off.
So he's a fiscal politician, fiscally conservative politician, and he's hitting the stone wall of the welfare state. And he's saying that they're asking only for half the national average for health care contributions, and the teachers are screaming, no, we shouldn't pay it. To me, it sounds fair. And look, I want to tell you something. It's very easy to say, oh, you conservatives are always on the side of the rich. You never take the side of the poor. I'm a former teacher. I know what it's like to live on very little. I'm a former social worker. It was a long time ago, admittedly. And, of course, if I had free health care and a free pension, I wouldn't want to pay a dime of it. Of course, I would like to continue to have 3 months off in the summer and teacher days and this day and that day and wind up teaching about 200 days a year. I would love it and still collect a nice, steady check. But the question is, where is the money going to come from? You can't blame it on defense. See, now they're blaming the rich in Wisconsin. The rich meaning the dairy farmer, the businessman, the shopkeeper. Suddenly, anyone who makes an actual living and doesn't work for the state is the rich to the state worker. Otherwise, they would blame it on the Pentagon. The last I checked, there was no Wisconsin Air Force, although I'm sure if we checked further, we'd find